You can't hawk a book without carrying the book.
You have to. It's attached
everywhere you go. It's very weird.
Legally, you're obligated to have that
it says
book.
it in the contract, actually.
You're showering, from what I understand, with that book at this point.
That's weird. We just went over the line.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Guys, one more time, make some noise. Jeff Rossen's right here, man. How cool. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's so nice to have you. Congratulations.
This is weird, by the way. This is like thinnest version of me ever next to me.
I could have them zoom in and bring it closer if you want.
That would be great. That would be awesome.
That'll make you feel better about it. I want to talk to you about the book. I want to get into it. I have so many questions, but first, just how are you doing, man? How's things going?
I'm doing well. It's release day. It's my first book ever.
Very exciting.
I go on TV on the Today Show all the time, and I have never been as nervous as today.
It's your thing.
It's so personal. It's like, you are rejecting me if you don't buy this book. It's like a personal rejection.
Yeah, before you were talking about like ways to survive and how to navigate scams. Now this is a window into you.
Right, fine. You don't like a fire escape plan. Fire escape plan's being rejected, not Jeff Rossen. Yeah. Now it's all me.
How's the response been so far?
The response has been great. We're in the top 10 on Amazon right now, which is really cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, applaud for that.
Yeah, so that's an applause
top
line.
10.
Yeah.
You know how many books are on Amazon?
8 million, it says, apparently.
Fair enough. I didn't have that number. I figured, I was just
here for you.
Awesome. So congratulations on that. That's wonderful. Describe that moment for me. I think I saw a little tweet about it, but that first time you walk in and you see your books in a bookstore on a shelf, this thing you've been like working and toiling over, it's real.
Yeah, it happened last night. I went into a Barnes & Noble, and they had it right there on the stand, and it's so weird because this thing for me has just been pages and a binder. Looking at it and looking at it and reworking it and second guessing yourself, and then to see it up there. It's really cool because in television, the really magical thing about TV is how you can be visual and all that, but the downside of TV is that once you do it, it's like blip, it's gone. It's airing in different time zones, sure, but then it's gone. Here, this is something I can actually have on my coffee table forever, which is kind of cool.
And carry with you wherever
I go, as we've established.
How long have you been working on the book, man?
I've been working on this. I mean, we were talking about it a little over a year ago.
Okay.
It took me probably 3 or 4 months to write and edit.
No way.
And then it takes a really long time to publish a book. It takes from the time you send it in, it's like actually the grammar police. We always... Actually, the grammar police.
The literal grammar police.
They live here and they get it, and you're like, this is the best writing ever. They're like, no, it's not.
This isn't even a book.
This isn't a book, but a third grader wrote this.
This is a long email. Yeah. That's what you've sent me. That's all this is.
Exactly.
So what was the inspiration behind it? What kicked you off on it? Because you've been doing, Rossen Reports for a while. What was the thing that triggered and said, I want to make this a
I've always wanted to make a book, but I got to be honest, it's the one thing that scared me. It's the one thing that scared me because it's so personal and because I knew that if I wrote a book, I'd really have to go there with my personal life and talk about everything. And then once I made that decision to do it, we talked to a publisher actually reached out to me. I probably wouldn't have had the courage, honestly, if I'm being honest, to go to a publisher. They came to me. And from there it was, let's do this. We got into a room and I bought the idea right in the room. And we have this vast library of tips from avoiding scams and ripoffs to surviving emergencies to saving money. And so much of what's in the book is sort of from my personal life. So it was pretty easy to draw on.
That's what I wanted to ask is, was that a goal from the beginning? Because I think that's one of the things that sets it apart from what we're used to on TV, right? Is that there is a window into you and there is a personal side to it. Did it start off where that was a priority, or were you putting it together and going, I really need to flesh this out, I need to make this more...
Yes, the second one.
Got it.
Look, the stories I do on the Today Show really are I'm driven by my own past and the things that have happened to me. And the things I've experienced, but in this book, but it never really comes out that way on TV because I sort of use that in the process of story development and brainstorming ideas, but it never ends up on television. So this was sort of new. Once I was writing these tips down, I'm like, but there's a great story behind this, not a great story, but in, chapter 1 of my book is protecting your home. And we do a segment on home invasions. We do a piece on home invasions in the book about how to survive a home invasion. Why am I driven to that? Because I was the victim of a home invasion. When I was 10 years old, paralyzed in my bed. There's a guy, kicking down my back door.
And your dad, the superhero.
My dad, the superhero, turns on all the lights, runs down the stairs like 7 steps at a time, screaming, I have a bat, I have a gun. He didn't have either one.
Oh, I thought he at least had
No,
the bat.
he had nothing. He had his loud voice. I don't think he thought ahead 10 seconds to when he actually got to the door and didn't have those things. But by then, luckily, it scared the guy off. But it traumatized me, and I still can't. You know, to this day, I still can't sleep on the ground floor of a hotel.
No way, really?
To this day, I can't.
You can't do it.
Any like door that's open to the outside, or in a house, by the way. Like I'll go to.
I was going to say, does it apply to like a house?
It applies to houses too. I'll go to visit my parents, for example, and they have a single story, and I freak out the entire time I'm there.
That's incredible.
Because if you can get to me on that first floor, I feel unsafe. Like living here in New York City, it's great because we live in apartment buildings.
Was that kind of like your Batman Begins? Is that your origin story? Is like if you could
sure, that
trace
sounds
it far
better than that sounds good. Yeah,
That's
sure.
like the moment you were like, I am devoted to this.
Yeah, yes. And so I'm like, and now that I'm a dad myself and I have a house and all that, I'm like, okay, what would I do in a home invasion? Would I be as heroic as my father? Did he do the right thing? Was that a dumb thing to do?
Yeah.
So I decided to write about that.
Those are such hard questions to ask too. Well, that kind of leads to, I guess, the impetus for your show, where you actually put yourself in those situations, where you flood the car and try to get out and things of that nature. Right?
Yeah, because I'm a show me guy, don't tell me guy. Mainly because I'm not smart enough to just be told things. I need to be shown things. Yeah. So I feel like the audience is the same as me. At least I'm hoping they are, because I like to see something. And, you know, there are a lot of survival experts who go out and tell you what to do, and they put themselves in crazy scenarios that you can never actually be in. I try to put myself in situations that you could be in, you never want to be in, but you could be in. Like a raging flood, like a flash flood.
You labeled, I think you tweeted recently that the WTF I Trusted You section is one of your favorite sections in the book. I'm wondering, what about that particular section makes it your favorite?
Because I got to say WTF.
Just because it legitimately,
that's the only,
the use of WTF.
Actually, next question. No. The reason I like that is because it's all about scams and ripoffs. Because so many of us every single day rely on people, right? If you have homes, if you have keys, if you have keys, you need a locksmith sometimes. If you get sick, you need to trust the doctor. If your toilet breaks, you get a plumber. Yeah. You know, so we rely on these people who know a lot more than us. They're the experts. So when they come in and say, that spigot is off, you're like, okay.
Fair enough.
The spigot's broken.
Yeah, I have no idea.
It costs $300. I guess spigots cost $300. That's
what spigots run these days.
That's what spigots cost. Exactly. So when these guys rip us off, it pisses me off, because at the core of me. And there are so many scam artists out there. There are good guys out there too, and the key is to find them. So we give you tips to identify these scam artists. Believe it or not, there are tells. There are things that many of them do that we're onto them.
What's a big red flag? Like, is there one that is all-encompassing? Like every scam artist, you can count on them to do this thing.
Well, here's what scam artists will do. They'll walk in and they'll say something to you like, if I'm in your house, they'll say, you'll come in, let's say you're, I don't know, you think there's mold.
All right, it might be mold in my house.
It probably is.
I need you to help me out.
I met him in the grant. They're probably...
You don't know my house.
There's likely mold in your house.
Like, fair enough.
Knowing you even just for a few minutes, I'm assuming there's mold in your home.
Do I strike you as the kind of guy that has mold in his house?
A moldy guy.
Fair enough. You're not the first to say it, not going to be the last. Go on.
So usually it's on first dates he hears that. Yeah. This is weird in this setting. So you invite over a mold remediator. Okay. And you assume, okay, he's going to check for mold. If they don't do a test, if he goes down and looks at it and says, that's mold, no. No, there are mold tests for that. But then here's another tell. So they don't actually test and look too carefully at it, that's one. Here's something else they do that's really smart. They'll say, oh, that's fine. So you'll call them in for the mold. They'll be like, that's not mold, actually. That's not mold. So now they have your trust, right? You're like, oh, this guy's honest.
You let me know.
It's not mold. But it'll say, something I did notice in your garage, come out with me. There's a crack in your foundation here that's disturbing me. Huh. So now that's the bigger job, right?
Got it.
So now he's won your trust over. So whenever they come in and they say, the thing you called them in for is fine, but then they point your attention to another problem, that is a massive red flag, and so many of them do it. I've done so many undercover stings, and it's a pattern.
Is it safe to say at that point, get a second opinion on
Absolutely.
that thing? Yeah.
And a lot of people don't, I want to be honest about this. You know, it's so easy to say get a second opinion. Yeah. A lot of people don't want confrontation.
Right.
They don't want it, you know, all that. So the way to say that to somebody is, you know, I've had somebody look at that before, and they say it's fine. Put them on the spot a little bit. Make it up. Yeah. I'm serious.
Lie with confidence.
Lie with confidence. Yeah. Make it up, not in general in life, but in this situation dealing with a contractor, I've actually had somebody check that out, and they said it was fine. See what they do with that.
Yeah.
Do they go into greater detail that sounds legit to you? Of course, you should get a second opinion always.
Yeah.
But that's another red
Make
flag.
them work for it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's funny that you bring up like how people don't want confrontation, because even you yourself, I think later in the book you talk about when you go shopping and like asking for price matches and stuff like that.
You feel cheap.
Yeah, it feels.
Yeah, you feel cheap.
But almost every time it seems to work out. Like the store will honor it, the bundling, all these different things. Do you find yourself, even after all these experiments, still struggling to get over that I don't want to be confrontational feeling?
Absolutely. It's so funny. I get asked this question all the time. Like, when you confront bad guys, do you get nervous? It's like a top question. Yeah. And the answer is no. I'm not like some macho guy. I'm probably the least macho guy you know. But somehow when I'm in like that persona, the work persona, where I've done all the research, I know this is probably a bad dude who's done some bad stuff, I actually like representing the little guy and having that voice that so many of us haven't been able to have. So I don't get nervous in those situations. When I send like steak back at a restaurant, I get nervous. I got tuna last night at this restaurant here in New York, and you have to have tuna rare, right? Like, who gets tuna cooked through? Yeah. It's gross. Yeah. So I ordered the tuna, assuming it was like a rare tuna steak. So it came back and it was like completely cooked. Oof. It was like disgusting. Right. And I actually went back and forth, like, should I send this back?
Do I just eat around it?
Do I just eat around it?
The potatoes are fine.
The potatoes are fine. The broccoli is edible. So I sent it back, but I do think about those things, whereas when I'm in these real life situations for work, I don't.
Well, let me ask you this. This is something I was wondering about. Now that because the whole point of the book is to sort of give us this knowledge and empower us to sort of be safer, make more educated decisions, and know how to avoid scams and things of that nature. But you possessing all this knowledge, having done this, walking around, has that become at this point more of a burden than a superpower of knowing that thing can kill me, that thing might kill me, this thing I know won't kill me, but if I do this, that guy will tell me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, does it become
right, like I'm so cynical that it's like overpowered my entire life?
You're just like, you've woken up, you've seen The Matrix, you know the truth now. You can't go back. Like, so how does that feel at this point?
It's so true. But I will say this. It's so funny how we're different. Like, I should actually I should read this book as a reader more than the author, because I don't take some of my own advice sometimes.
Fair enough.
Like, I'll be home with my kids, and people will say to me, like, you must be the most boring parent in the world. You must not let your kids do anything. But the truth is, they sort of like do everything.
Yeah.
My son's like jumping off a couch. You know, like, things are happening that are like, my kids are playing in traffic. Yeah. Apparently, you're not supposed to do that.
Wait. I can get on board with the jumping off the couch thing. Jeff,
you draw the line of traffic.
You gotta draw the line of traffic. Unless it's a cul-de-sac.
I'll go back and look at it.
It's a loose definition of traffic.
It's so funny. Like, you really have to disassociate sometimes.
Yeah.
It's sort of like when you meet a divorce attorney and they're married. You're like, how are you married? This is ending in disaster. But you're able to separate a little.
Fair enough. Yeah, I just feel like there's something to be said for the blissful ignorance at a certain point.
Absolutely. Yes, I have some of that, don't worry.
Very nice that you can retain that after all this. Are you ever surprised by like some of the reactions? Like, there's a great story about when you went up against the bank and how people, tell us.
I want to ask the audience about that one. Can I?
Yeah, please do. Ask.
There's a bank here in New York that has the penny arcade. You know those things where you put the coins into the thing, you don't have to roll your own coins, and it spits out like a receipt, and it says it counted your coins perfectly accurately. And I'll talk to you too. It's not just gonna be
it's fine. I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So I don't want to offend anybody.
No.
So
called me a mold guy.
So that was offensive. That was offensive. You're absolutely right. So I thought to myself, I was there with my son, and they're counting. We dumped in this like plastic bag full of change and all that, and it spit out some number, and I'm like, wait a second, why am I just taking it on this machine's authority that it's counting every penny?
I've definitely had that thought too of like, who's to say? Like,
who knows? Do you know how much money is in that? Like, and you've like taken every penny and quarter?
But I've got stuff to do, so I'm just gonna take this machine's word for it.
Right, so I'm glad you said that. So a lot of us do that, especially in the big cities. This is a big city bank, and not Citibank, but a big New York City bank, to be clear. And so we went in with my team. I went into my team, and this is how all of our stories happen. I'm like, you know what I was thinking? They're like, oh, God, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Oh, what are we doing today? I'm like, well, today you're going to count out $300 in quarters, pennies, and dimes. It's really a crappy job these producers have. I love you. And they sat on the floor, and they counted out several bags of $300, $300. So we knew it was $300 on the mark. So then we brought it to all these penny arcades.
Right.
What would it say? Every time, it was wrong.
It's insane.
Every time it was wrong. It was from this bank. By the way, it was always wrong. Sometimes off by like 50 cents. Sometimes, I don't have the exact numbers in my head, but like sometimes off by a few dollars. One time it was off by almost $50. But let me tell you something. Even for the ones that were off by like 50 cents, imagine how many people go in there and it's off by 50 cents.
How many times a day?
How much money are they making? And on top of that, it was wrong every time, but it never was wrong in our favor.
It was always less.
Not once was it over. Like, oh, it gave me an extra buck.
Right.
That never happened.
Never.
And think about if you were to be off by a cent in your mortgage.
Yeah, they'd be right on top.
Your credit would be ruined.
Exactly.
They don't want to hear excuses.
There's no wiggle room.
So why is it okay for them? So those are the kind of stories that I like doing. And by the way, because of that, there was and I don't know because of it, but after our story aired, there was a class action lawsuit and people are getting some of their money back.
Which is the desired and expected outcome. What I found fascinating was the small section of people where we can now poll the audience.
That's what I wanted to ask them.
Yeah,
So a bunch of people walked up to me on the street and I got all this hate mail saying, screw you. I can't believe that you ruined the penny arcades for us because the bank pulled the arcades out of service after our story to check them for a 2-week run. Then a couple of weeks later, pulled them out of service permanently.
Never put them back.
Never put them back in.
Yeah.
So clearly the machines were, apparently the software doesn't exist to count change accurately.
Fix it.
They couldn't fix it. So I got all this hate mail from people saying, you ruined it.
You ruined it.
Now I have to roll my coins.
Thanks for nothing.
Thanks for nothing. I got the nastiest note. So my question to you was, are you willing to pay some money for convenience? Are you willing to lose money even if they don't tell you you're losing money? They're not being upfront about it. But are you willing to pay $50 on a $300 bag?
Show of hands. Willing to give up $50 so you don't have to count $300 in change. Anybody willing to give up? No. No hands.
Oh my God, I'm gonna live here because when I go out there,
it is scary out there.
It's scary out there.
I just thought that was crazy that people would come up to you on the street and be like, thanks for nothing, Jeff.
Yeah, I put on a cable news show here in New York one morning and like they're doing a story about it and they're like, thanks a lot, Jeff Ross. And I'm like, what? You're welcome.
Presumably holding a giant bag of change.
Yeah, that they were gonna hit me over the head with.
Exactly.
Like Homie the Clown on Living Color, you know?
Sick pull, Jeff.
Oh, they love that. They love that.
Yeah. I have to go to audience in a second, but I am curious, is there anything you wish you could unknow? Like you did something like, oh, no.
Anything I wish I could unknow.
I gotta walk around with this.
Yeah, we did a story. It was actually our most popular investigation ever.
Oh, yeah, this.
Yes.
I wish I could unknow this, too. Go ahead, ruin their day.
It's about, for women especially, retailers were selling used underwear as new in the store.
Yeah.
Yes, people's eyes are opening, men and women like, what? So we went to a bunch of retailers and we were wondering, I have a very sick, twisted mind, clearly. This is what we did. This is like my job. I go in there and like have women's underwear on our desk. It's weird. It's like an HR nightmare. So we go in and we wondered about this because we had heard from some whistleblowers at some stores that this was going on. So we went in and we bought a bunch of underwear and bikini bottoms and all that. Took all the tags off, made it look, like whatever, then brought them back, gave them back, and then we had undercover producers standing there with hidden cameras to watch what the salespeople would do. Yeah. And then many of these stores, the stores you shop in, they were retagging it and putting it back on the shelf. And they have no idea where their underwear was.
Yeah.
We even put baby oil on some. We went extreme. It was like insane.
Yeah.
So that's our most popular one, and I wish I didn't know about that.
Does it ever surprise you that's the most popular one, or no?
Yeah, I think America's sick. I think we're all troubled.
Well, everyone in this room seems pretty on the level.
Yes.
I don't want to give up the $50.
No.
We're all horrified.
I love
about
this
the
audience.
Yeah,
this audience I love.
You have good audience.
Yeah. I love America.
Well, hey, to that end, let's go ahead and turn it over to them. I think we've got some microphones in the room. First question's right over here.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So do you have a different process of coming up with what you're going to put in your book as opposed to what you talk about on TV? Or
Good question. For this book, we were really trying to, on TV, we sometimes, there's a difference between something that's sometimes purely a visual story. I would say there are more segments that could go in the book that could go on TV. It's almost like it's almost easier to put something in print sometimes for me versus having to go that extra step of what are we showing to demonstrate this?
Yeah, how do we tell the story?
There are a lot of great stories out there, great, amazing stories that just aren't great television visual stories. So, for the book, that's what's also been really nice for me is that we've been able to open it up a little bit and do some stories that I wouldn't know what to go out and shoot for it, but we can still tell it.
Even with that freedom, was there stuff that you couldn't get into the book that just didn't have time?
Yeah, for the sequel.
Yeah.
This book's going to do great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Fair enough. We have time for a few more questions. Our next question's right here in the front.
So I was wondering if there was any ideas that you love that weren't able to make it in just yet.
Into the book?
Yeah, or on your show.
Or on my show. Any ideas that I love? Well, we actually have a great series this week that didn't make it into the book, and I wish I had thought of it before, but we're getting it on television on Wednesday morning on the Today Show. If I could, I've hawked the book now. I'm going to hawk the Today Show for a moment.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Hawk away.
I count calories all the time. In the book I lost nearly 30 pounds a couple of years ago. I mean, you obviously don't have that problem. Like, look at this physique. I mean, for God's sakes.
First of all, I think you're compensating for the old comment, but I will take it. I will take it.
But I battle with weight every single day, and I count calories, and that's how I live. I have a lot of tricks, by the way, about how I lost the weight in the book as well. But I count calories. So you know how more and more restaurants now, the bigger chains, are putting the calorie counts on the menus? I don't know why I didn't think of this before, but are those accurate?
Testing that, calling their
So we went around within the past couple of weeks to all these restaurants. This didn't make the book, but we're doing it for TV. All these big popular chains, and took the stuff and sent it to a certified food lab. And we're going to have the results tomorrow morning. It's pretty crazy. And one of the restaurants, it's so crazy that they've changed the menu as a result of our investigation.
That's pretty amazing.
It was so off. More than 500 calories off.
That's pretty crazy. I was curious about that too, because especially the underwear thing, it's one of those rare instances where you get to identify a problem, shine a light on it, and see an immediate response.
Yeah, and I will say the stores in that underwear investigation came back to us, and they retrained all their employees. I mean, it's really nice for real when you can make a difference, and that's what I'm really trying to do. The best stuff is when that happens with a big chain and they change their menu. Those stores retrain people. Policies are changed. That's really nice.
Yeah, I was queuing up as I was reading the book. I was like, oh, I can ask a question about the disappointment of never seeing change when, oh, no, they did it. He got him to change.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Also, my favorite tip from your the weight loss part, don't use the top slice of bread.
Yes, isn't that so easy?
So obvious.
I love having
it's a
sandwiches.
Tiny little adjustment.
Because I hate when diet plans are don't have carbs. I'm like, come on, really? Who's not having bread?
Yeah.
As 20 people in here raise their hands. I love bread. I love pasta. I'm not giving it up. I know I'm not giving it up. So one of the things I do, and this is from Joy Bauer, our weight loss expert, and it's been so critical, and it helped me lose weight. For real, each slice of bread can have, 100 calories in it?
Yeah.
If you have a sandwich, that's 700 calories a week that you can save by just taking that top layer off. And by the way, you don't miss it.
No.
So your hand gets on the lettuce. Big deal.
Big deal.
Big deal.
But I think, a lot of weight loss is finding those little adjustments, and some you don't realize how it adds up over time, and that's just a nice little
And
adjustment.
the key is you have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
You have to find something that you can sustain, so it's hard.
Yeah, for sure. I think we have time for, is it one more? No, we've got yeah, okay, there we are. We have one more question. It's right over here.
Hi.
Hi.
So if I had $1 for every time a scam phone call came through my cell phone, I would never have to work again. So I'm curious as to, for me, it's obvious that it's a scam, but for so many other people, they fall for it. So why do you think that happens?
I think the key is figuring out a new system where we actually can get $1 for that, so none of us have to work ever again. Can't we just attack it from that side?
Yeah, let's monetize it.
Isn't that better?
Yeah.
Why does that keep happening? It's a big deal. The FCC needs to be harder on these telemarketers. We've done investigations on this, and they're like whack-a-mole, right? Because what you'll do is you'll put yourself on the do not call registry, and telemarketers are violating it, right? Because what they'll do is, it's a big business. You have no idea how big of a business telemarketing is. So what they'll do is, the Jeff Rossen organization will open up, and we're a telemarketing firm. I will blow you out and call you. You'll put yourself on the do not call registry. I may even keep calling you, and then I'll get caught and I'll get fined. But I've made so much money from calling you that it doesn't matter. The fine is part of my business model. And then if the government shuts me down, I'm just going to open up as, I don't know, the major insurance company, the major telemarketing. I'll just rename it, do it again, get fined again. And that's the problem in this country. The laws have not caught up to all of our mobile devices, emails, and all that. So Washington, if you're listening, they need to toughen up the rules so this doesn't keep happening. But that's the problem. There's so much money to be made from this. Yeah. And when you go shopping at a store, ever on your Facebook feed, it's like you go to Bloomingdale's, and then 2 weeks later, it's like, oh my God, there's a Bloomingdale's ad. And oh my God, that's the kind of dress I got, right? It's like, it's weird. It's because all these places, and I'm not singling out Bloomingdale's, but any of these stores, they all do it. A lot of them are selling your information.
Yeah.
And there's big money to be made to third parties.
Do you have any tips in regards to making yourself a little less vulnerable? Like I've been getting one that I get all the time, at least once a month, is they call and say, "We'd love to call and discuss your energy bill. Please have a copy of your bill handy. This is blah, blah, blah." And I was like,
never, ever give any personal information when that happens, because that is a typical scam. You'll get a letter in the mail that looks like it's from your bank.
Yeah.
It's not really. And don't call the number on that paper to confirm it, because that's probably their fake number. If it's your credit card company and they want additional information, ignore the letter, ignore the email, go to the back of your credit card and look at the number that you know is the credit card company or the bank, and call them and ask, or the utility, to make sure that it's legit. Never, ever give personal information. It's the easiest thing that these criminals do.
For sure. The last, I forgot to bring up, I was really excited about, I discovered you just launched a podcast.
Yes.
Is that right? Tell us a little bit about that.
It's really cool. It's like Rossen to the Rescue, like condensed into 10 minutes. And we're doing it every week. It's the Rossen to the Rescue podcast. It's on iTunes. It's on Audible. It's everywhere.
Very, very cool.
It's very fun.
We've got the podcast. We've got the book that just came out.
Yeah.
And, of course, Rossen Reports on NBC.
Yes.
We've got a new one coming up, you said tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, Friday morning, and Saturday morning. I'm busy.
How'd you find time to be
here? I got to pay for all these kids and my wife in the back.
That is fantastic. Guys, I really enjoyed reading this book. It's filled with a ton of great stories, a lot of great and useful information. Make some noise one more time, please. Jeff Rossen, everybody. Come on.
Thank you. Thank you.